WNST time for this day. It's been about 5-6 months since he purchased his Lamar Jackson shirt right after the draft. I think the draft at 11:35. Did you have your Lamar Jackson shirt purchased by midnight that night, Dennis Koulatsos, or no?
You know what? He got the first Lamar Jackson shirt. I got the second one, Nestor. So that's the fact. The ink wasn't dry in the back of the jersey. You know, the stitching was still not proper.
And the interesting thing is, you're one of the sane people out there. You don't hate Joe Flacco. You love Joe Flacco.
No,
you've always been a Joe Flacco guy. You just see him as an aging quarterback, and you need to move on to the next thing because that's the way sports works. So you're a little more unemotional about it, and you've worked in business for 3 decades and seen the comings and goings of, like I have, of Johnny U and Burt Jones and and on down the list, right? The Lamar Jackson thing is intriguing, and this was the first full act of it. I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, I have a lot of opinions, strong opinions and comments. Look, people have come at me because they think I dislike Joe Flacco, and as you correctly mentioned, that's not the case. I'm very grateful for what Joe's done for 11 years here in Baltimore. Very grateful for the Super Bowl, but he is an aging quarterback. He hasn't played up to his contract. He's been injured as of late. And right now the Ravens have a window that's opening up for them. They have a quarterback on a rookie contract. They have a lot of cap space for next season. They have draft picks, so they can make another run here. And hopefully it's going to be with Coach Harbaugh. I think this young man, I said it weeks ago, if John Harbaugh has any intentions of coming back and coaching the Ravens, his best opportunity is to try to catch lightning in the bottle with Lamar Jackson. Yes, he's a rookie. Yes, he's raw. Yes, he's not ready. But the intangibles, for me, far outweigh the negatives, and I think we saw that yesterday. And to me, the laughable part, all the naysayers, you can't continue to do that. Of course not. He's not going to run 28 times a game. They're going to give him the key to the offense, more of the keys to the offense as the season progresses. They have another bad team coming in here next week in the form of the Oakland Raiders. They can allow him to do more, but they have enough defense, special team coaching, and I think his enthusiasm is contagious. I mean, he's not only energized the offense, the offensive line, the running backs, the receivers, but also the defense and the coaching staff. John Harbaugh's speech in the locker room afterwards, I absolutely love it. That did not look like a 500-team locker room. It looked like a playoff team's locker room. And you know what? Let's hope for the best going forward.
It took him about 20 minutes to get into the media room. Like, we're all sitting in there. We were watching the end of the Steelers-Jaguars game, so I didn't mind that John was late getting to the podium, but certainly after 2 weeks of job reports and him losing his job and Flacco and health and RG3 and Lamar was at the hospital on Thursday night, you know what I mean? Like, all of this played out last week, and they wind up winning the game against a defense that was bad. And to your point, there's no style points here. And as I spoke with Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated, they're playing nothing but bad run defense teams the rest of the way. But this is really an ugly version of football, right? I mean, I called it rugby.
I saw that.
When I got down to Luke in the fourth quarter and I'm watching the game from the press box, the first thing I turned to him, I'm like, I feel like I'm watching Navy, especially in those black uniforms. It feels like a Navy college football game. I mean, it felt like watching Dundalk High play last year when they put me in the Hall of Fame over there. It's not attractive, but neither was Trent Dilfer. But that didn't stop us from having a good time, right?
Look, they put up 24 points. It's been weeks since they put up 24 points. They put up 16 and 21 with Joe and 14 and 9 up in Cleveland. So 24 points for me in his first start. Plenty of points. The defense showed up when it had to. I saw your tweet when he came out about the rugby comment. I laughed. I couldn't like it. I couldn't bring myself to like it. But I did see that myself.
You laughed, but you didn't like it. What the hell does that mean?
I couldn't like it.
If you laughed, you did like it, so you got to like it.
I tweeted out that they reminded me of the 1976 Oklahoma Sooners with Barry Switzer and Billy Sims and Thomas Lott, the triple option. But it was great because you know what? He moved the chains. He got first downs. I mean, he scored a touchdown, Nestor, on their opening drive without throwing a single pass in today's NFL. I think the running quarterback is the thing of the future. He can buy time with his feet. We saw the pass of Smokey Brown late in the game. Receivers, defensive backs can't stick to receivers long enough when you have a mobile quarterback like that. Somebody today said, well, he threw the ball sidearm. Well, Aaron Rodgers throws the ball sidearm, so does Tom Brady. You're trying to get it around the defender, so that's what happens to you. when you're a mobile quarterback and just trying to figure out a way to win. But I just love his upside, the potential, the intangibles. And, of course, the haters are going to hate. They're going to say he's not ready. They're going to say he's a gimmick. They don't see him going through the progressions. I mean, I broke down some game film. I saw him looking at reads. I mean, the slants that he threw were perfect. He throws a very catchable ball. Not as much zip as Joe Flacco, but again, it's more manageable for the receiver to catch it. So I think he does have the attention of the offense. And also, after that locker room speech by Harbaugh that I enjoy so much, it was Lamar Jackson leading that Ravens cheer. So to me, power isn't given, it's taken, and I think he's taken that power of the team right now.
He is Dennis Koulatsos. He's over Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis, we sent out the Coons Ford text about the Orioles hiring someone. At some point, they're going to hire a manager here for the holidays. We'll have Thanksgiving and Cranberry, and we'll have all that. What's going on at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard? I know Black Friday, and then there's sort of Drinking Wednesday, or at least that's what we called it in Dundalk. And then there's Turkey Thursday, and then there's the Saturday, and then we play the Raiders Sunday. This is a big, big weekend in the automobile industry, right?
It's a huge weekend. We have Black Friday starting off at 6 a.m. We'll be here from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. This Friday and from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. on Saturday. It's a big weekend for us, a big retail weekend. A lot of our customers come out, repeat customers, referral customers, and also brand new customers from all over the country. So Ford is supporting us. We're still giving up 0% for 72 months, Nestor, which is an outstanding offer.
That's 6 years. Wow.
Yeah, man. I mean, interest-free, and the rates have gone up lately the last year or so. So most of my friends are taking advantage of that 0% because when we do the math together and we see what the total outpay, the total sum that they have to pay back to the bank, it's always better to take the 0%, especially when you're financing $50,000 and $60,000 like some of these big trucks that we sell.
You're talking about $10,000, $15,000 difference over the life of the deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a no-brainer, and not many manufacturers giving up 0 for 60. We have a lot of inventory, which is great for our customers. A great selection, over 700 brand new car, trucks, and SUVs, and people that were out there that slopped the other day, you got to have a 4x4 to get around these days, or you're going to be homebound.
He is Dennis Koulatsos. He's going to be doing the Sunday Sports Voice on Tuesday this week, not Thursday, because like everyone else, he'll be eating turkey with his family and watching football and waiting to sell more cars on Black Friday. And you will not be the one lining up at 3 o'clock in the morning to buy a car at Coons Ford, though, right? I mean, you're not wacky and opening at 2 in the morning to sell cars, right?
No, 6 o'clock. Look, we have customers here every year at 6 o'clock when we open up, and look, we start selling early and often. There's some people want to come in, get their brand new ride right away, and go on about their
shopping. But you don't have to leave dinner and miss the Thursday night game. You can just come on Friday and buy a car.
Yeah, we'll be here from 6 in the morning till 9 or 10 or 11 o'clock at night. We don't leave until the last customer does.
All right, then. Let's get back on to football here and where you are in all of this. How about the Bengals defense, huh? How about the Bengals just falling apart? How about the Steelers clenching this victory out of jaws of defeat down in Jacksonville? It was kind of a crazy afternoon, and the comings and the goings and where Marvin is in all of this and where Andy Dalton is in all of this and how that team looks defensively as well as without A.J. Green. Suddenly, the Ravens feel to me to be relevant enough to win this week to sort of resuscitate the season. And I think a lot of the players, I was at Matt Judon's locker, and I think for some of the younger guys, this has been a little shell-shocking to go a month without winning a football game in this league.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A lot of those fellas have experienced nothing but success, especially a guy like Marlon Humphrey of Alabama winning national championships and Anthony Everett and those guys. But look, it's a good vibe. As you mentioned, they can get back next week and beat the Raiders. And I challenge our listeners, our fans, look, I don't want to see the stadium 20% empty again. It was a very loud crowd. Everybody was into it, but I'd like to see that stadium full. Let's get behind these Ravens and cheer these guys. The 12th man's got to become a factor again. It was great having Ray Lewis and all the other Ravens there on the field. Jonathan Ogden stopped by our suite yesterday. I got a chance to talk to him for a little bit. What a great guy he is. But they have a shot. They have a shot at the sixth wild card spot, the second playoff wild card spot. They beat the Raiders. I'm telling you, momentum is, like Coach Pillick used to say, it's a force multiplier, right? They can catch fire and stay hot and keep rolling. And the other question is, what happens when Joe Flacco is healthy enough to play? Are they going to let Joe get back in there?
Well, that was the first question, right? I'm sitting in the press conference and I was going to say something, ask something. And it's not even about pissing off Harbaugh, but I'm not really going to get a real answer, right? Like the real answer is when he's back, and I guess when you say the force multiplier, if this kid throws the ball around a little bit, feels good about himself, and they win, I don't know, 31-13 or whatever it'll be this week, however they win, and hopefully he doesn't run the ball 30 more times or whatever. But if Flacco is back, and now when you bring Lamar in, you have what we talked about in the offseason, which is this really wild thing. And what happens if they throw Flacco a pass down in Atlanta? What happens if there's some play that Marty has that he hasn't busted out because he hasn't felt good enough about it, that a full complement of Flacco going up top, doing all the Willie Snead, Smokey Brown things that he had been doing the first 5-6 weeks of the season. And I don't know where the running game is. And, man, I guess Collins and Buck and these guys are now there's a new sheriff in town, right? We got a new running back, the Gus Bus, right?
Yep, absolutely. Look, a lot of football left to be played, and what's intriguing about it, Nestor, if this team can somehow find a way into the playoffs, that may change the equation for John Harbaugh and his coaching staff, particularly if he's good with Eric DaCosta and Steve Bisciotti. I mean, if they make the playoffs and they see some daylight and they can support this kid going forward, I can easily see John getting another 5-year, $40 million contract. And based on the locker room, it's clear he hasn't lost it. It's clear the players are still playing very hard for him. He's got their attention. He's as fired up as ever. So I think all the indicators are positive for the Ravens going forward. And if this kid can continue growing by the game, I don't see how they can bring Joe back this season. And it's early, but I like making early predictions. But that's my feeling going forward.
Dennis, you're convinced they're going to win this week, right? I mean,
absolutely.
I sort of feel the same way. I think the maturation of the defense here over the next 6 weeks, they need to win some games because the defense is good enough to win games, And I don't know against Derek Carr whether that's going to be the case this week. Certainly against Matt Ryan on the road, that'll be, and Mahomes, we'll see that. But I need to see the defense be more stout in these coming weeks for me to believe anything, because I think this offense will be tricky enough, especially with Flacco back, and if they play mistake-free, if they're not giving the ball away, throwing lollipop interceptions or whatever, that I feel like with Lamar and Joe, this whole notion of having 4 plays and moving the chains 10 yards, I feel better about that now that I've seen Lamar Jackson do this. I don't think it's pretty. I don't think it's sustainable. I do wonder what happens in 2020 and 21 and 22, because I think this kid's going to get hit too much, and that's another conversation. But over the next 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, can they be effective? They're only going to go as far as their defense takes them.
Yeah. Well, in all fairness to the defense, Nestor, they had the Bengals had a short field 3 or 4 times and during the game, and they held up relatively well. Football is such a complimentary game. We saw the offense hold the ball for 40 minutes. We saw the defense be fresh. We saw Marlon Humphrey come back and make a play after getting burned in the end zone for a touchdown. He made the play that sealed the game at the end. I thought that was a great thing for him and the defense to be able to close out the game in that matter. But it's a complimentary game. The offense keeps sustaining drives, putting points up on the board. The defense only has to be good enough. If the offense can score 30, 35 points a game, the Ravens have enough talent on defense to do damage. They're not going to be anywhere near the 2000 Ravens defense. No one is. The game has changed way too much to favor the offense, right? But the problem for the Ravens this year has been the lack of production on the offensive side of the ball. It hasn't been the defense. Yes, they've had some lapses, but they've been magnified only because of what the offense, all those 3 and outs that they haven't been able to do. I mean, we saw the Saints just blow out the Eagles, right? And the defense, it was at home, but they were still able to show up against the Saints and do a good job against them. But I think as the offense grows, as Lamar runs less, and he will, and as he passes more, and he has to, I think that'll give the defense. I can see this team getting some leads on teams where the defense is able to pin their ears back and get after the opposing quarterback versus have to worry about stopping the run. So I think that's going to be the difference, the transition as this team grows. But there's no way he can sustain this pace. He knows it. We know it. The coaching staff knows it. And I think the next 6 games, you're going to see Lamar run less and less every game and pass more and more as he gets more comfortable in this offense. And I'm just happy to see him going through progression, his reads. And look, his receivers were kind of unhappy. I guess they weren't getting the ball, but look, the bottom line is to win no matter how you get it done. And I think you'll see the passing game improve as the season progresses.
Well, it certainly wasn't a good look for Willie Snead. And the notion that you're going to pass the ball 19 times and keep receivers. I mean, those guys have been having track meets the last 10 weeks, right? Like throwing the ball 50, 55 times. It is sort of a stark contrast, and I'm sure when you're a wide receiver and you're out there and you've run 11 plays and you're in the end zone and literally other than cracking down on the outside to try to make room for your quarterback or a running back, you haven't been involved in the offense. It is a different feel. It was a different feel, as I said, the sort of rugby Navy look. As a fan, it felt differently. I can imagine that on the field. It feels differently. And it felt differently after the game. And I know I've talked to a lot of people about that this week, and I will continue. I stood next to Marshall Yonda after the game, and I stood next to Zeus Jr. after the game, and Matt Skura and Alex Lewis, who we're going to have come out and do a show with us next week. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. I'll be telling folks about that next Tuesday night. And these guys are out running, and you saw Zeus get all excited about pancaking a guy, and there's something about running the ball that offensive linemen, when they start doing it and doing it well, that is the force multiplier. And they all looked, sometimes you go in after the game and the guys look beaten up. They looked fresh. They looked showered and happy, and all of that from moving forward. There's something about that lunch pail thing that these guys, I think, are sort of taking to a little bit.
Well, you know what? There's a couple of points here, Nestor. Number one, it's a lot easier to run block than pass block. Think about it. When you're run blocking, you're firing off the ball, right? You're punching the other guy in the mouth. When you're pass blocking, you're on your heels, so it's a lot more fun, and it's a lot easier to run block, especially when you have a quarterback that's so dynamic. And I think with having him in there, when he sticks that ball in Gus Edwards' gut or Alex Collins, it freezes the linebackers and the safeties because they've got to make sure that when Lamar pulls that ball back, that he doesn't have the ball, because if he does, he can turn that corner on a dime and give you 9 cents change. We saw that yesterday, how fast he is. I mean, he is just so slick and so fast. He's running like a cheetah, so that opens up the running game. We've seen how the offense is better when he's in the game when it comes to the run, and that's the reason why. And the linemen love that. They feed off of that. Testosterone starts flowing, right? It's a big boy game. And, of course, they'd rather run the ball than the pass any day of the week.
Well, when he can hit Hayden Hurst on the run, when he can pull it back, freeze everybody, look like he's going to run, and then hit a tight end, or hit Nick Boyle on the run,
it's coming.
That's how you beat the Chiefs, right? That's how that's how you're going to beat the Chargers, who lost on Sunday. Dennis Koulatsos is here. He, of course, of Coons Florida Security Boulevard and the SSV on WNST. Tuesday this week instead of Thursday with the pumpkin pie and getting you ready for the weekend. And of course, when the Orioles hire a manager, you'll get that first. His first name will be Joe. I'll warn you on that. Last thing for you around the league, we talked a little bit about Roethlisberger and where the Bengals are. I know you get home. I know you're red zoning, and I know you're Monday night with the big game that's supposed to be in Mexico City. But watching the other things happening in this league, Alex Smith, broken leg, right?
Yeah.
Cam Newton out of the game, comes back in. Mariota, they get blistered. Andrew Luck now is known for more than just being a good Twitter follow, right? With his alternate ego there online. Teams are emerging. Teams are changing. I think at the bottom, there's going to be a lot of firing. There's going to be a lot of coaches. The Jets, the Browns, the Giants. I mean, all these bad teams. And who's going to get the number one pick, all that stuff. But amongst the decent teams, this is a hell of a cat fight now with Nashville and Indy and San Diego or wherever they play these days, because this isn't easy. And 3-5 becomes 5-5. In the case of the Texans, 0-3 has become 7-3. The Ravens need to make sure they're the team that's 7-5 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, no question about it, Nestor. Last night when I got home, I noticed that out of the first 11 games, 9 had come down to 3 points or less, which is great for the NFL. It's great for the brand. And it just goes to show you that almost everyone has a chance to get into the playoffs and make some noise, right? So that's the beauty of the league, the parity in the league, and how the landscape can change so quickly, to your point. But 9 out of 11 games at 3 points or less, I had a hard time wrapping my mind around that. But that's what the league is these days. It comes down to a field goal. Whoever has the ball last has a chance to win the game, which is why it's such an offensive driven league. The days of hoping that your defense can shut down a team and get them off the field That's gone. Right now, you have a better chance of having the ball in your hands. Think about your Drew Breeses, your Tom Brady's, your Patrick Mahomes. If you're down by 4, those guys they'd rather be down by 4 than up by 4, right? They don't want they don't want to rely on their defense to take the other team off the field after 4 downs. They'd rather have the ball in their hands to be able to go downfield, make plays, score a touchdown, and come away with a victory. And that's how the game has changed, and that's been my biggest beef with the Raven offense. Again, you got to score points. I don't care how they do it, land, air, or sea. I don't care if it's Tucker, Jackson, or whoever. But you got to start scoring 30, 35, 40 points a game if you're going to be relevant in this league. If you can't score that many points, you're not going to make the playoffs. It's as simple as that.
Mr. Jackson, if you're nasty.
I like that. I even looked him up on Twitter. His full name is Lamar Demetrius Jackson Jr., something like that. He's got a funny middle name, but I like the guy a lot. I love the enthusiasm and energy.
Well, he's a sweet-natured kid. I mean, there's no way you can't like the kid. I mean, literally, I went over to his locker after the game, and he was commiserating with Orlando Brown Jr., who I remember as a 5-year-old puppy, right? So, and you do too, because we both saw Zeus around town, and I always talked to Zeus Jr. about his dad's big truck and honking the horn and seeing him outside the Royal Farms on Key Highway. So I went over, and I know Lamar a little bit, but I mean, and we're in the locker room scrums or whatnot, but I've never really sat and talked to him. And I went over and I said, look, I've been doing this for 10 years. Whether you win or lose, I always come over and say something to Joe, like, get him next week, or, hey, man, good win, or we exchange some pleasantries about the Phillies or baseball or the Flyers or whatever we feel like talking about. And I went over and I said, good job, kid. You know what I mean? So so we had a smile about that. And that would be the message, right? Good job, kid, right? Really?
Well, the funniest thing for me is, I don't know if you saw it, after the game was over with, he handed the ball to the referee, and then he realized, I need that ball. So he made a joke about it. He said he strip-sacked the referee right after the game. So there's a video of him running up to the referee and just snatching the ball out of his hand and kept on going with it. I thought it was pretty funny. But it's just something that you see a rookie do, not a veteran, right? He's got that enthusiasm, and enthusiasm is contagious. And look, the offensive line is fired up, the fan base is fired up. At least this fan is fired up, and hopefully everybody can get behind this team right now as they make a push to the playoffs.
Well, you can't say can they win with Lamar Jackson. They just did. They just did. And style points, not there. And what you would say is it's coming. He's going to have to throw the football better than he has. And I think everybody would say that. I think people in the building would say that. And now it's how fast will that come, and will it be good enough to get them through 1 more game, 2 more games, 3 more games, and then when it shows up, and it will, because if Flacco comes back, there will be more of Lamar than we saw 4 weeks ago, right? I mean, he will become whatever that thing we saw with the Saints a couple of weeks ago and dream of a little bit.
Right.
That if it becomes that, and we're running around, and I'm out in California with my sandals on because the Chargers game means something. Wow. I mean, that would shock me if I have to alternate my plans for that Saturday night game, right?
Yeah. Well, I thought what was interesting too was people said that they couldn't believe that Marvin Lewis's defense wasn't prepared. They were prepared. They knew that Lamar Jackson was coming. It's one thing to see this kid on film. It's another thing to see him on the field, right? They said that Dak Prescott was clocked at 4 miles per hour, fastest quarterback on the field this year. They clocked Jackson at 10 miles per hour, which, again, I don't know how it translates, but if it's twice as fast, 2.5 times as fast as the next fastest guy, you can watch guys on film all you want, but when you get out there, it's, oh, my God, and I think that's what the Bengals defense had collectively was, oh, my God, moment. This guy was so fast they couldn't catch him. I think their tongues were hanging out in the fourth quarter. So I think they prepped for him. They just couldn't stop him.
Well, part 2, to be continued, right? And here come the Raiders who won, and John Gruden ran around like he won a Super Bowl, man, right? I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. Yep. Him and he got after it with Carr on the sideline there to have some heat in there. So, look, I think we're going to catch them at the right time, just like everybody else. They got to come all the way from the West Coast, and I believe the Ravens are on the roll. They're going to punch them right in the mouth and bring us another victory.
Always fun beating the Raiders, right? I mean, I didn't feel so good about it when Jack was around and beating us, but
winning is fun.
Now that they're back to just being the Raiders, this is good times, Brings back. But I'll share some of my Ghosts to the Post memories this week. Okay, how about that?
Oh no, well, winning is a lot of fun, isn't it? Just glad Glad to get a victory, no matter how we get it.
Dennis Koulatsos, Coons Florida Security Boulevard, be doing the SSV on Tuesday this week to get you ready for Thursday, which will get you ready for Sunday, and get you ready for Black Friday. Dennis, rest up. You're going to need it with all those cars you're selling this weekend out there. Huh?
Thanks a lot, my friend. Appreciate your time. Be well.
Coons Florida Security Boulevard, Dennis Koulatsos sponsoring our text service. That's the breaking news service we have here. So when the Orioles hire a manager, you will get it first. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.